All right, Shalom. Welcome to another edition of the Way of the Most High. That's the introduction to my website on my channel there. And for those of you who are new to what we're doing here, or what this site is of the ministry, site is the WayoftheMostHigh.ca, exalting belief in our Father, the Most High YaHUAH, through his Torah, known as the 5 scrolls of Moshe and Moses, Genesis to Deuteronomy. I thought of doing this live video to help people with the knowledge of the scriptures. And where better to start than from the beginning? So if you click on my page, the scriptures, it brings you here. Then you can read through this about some basic descriptions of different stuff that I got there. And today we're just going to start with the introduction and possibly a few chapters in Bereshit or Genesis. I was encouraged to do this because a lot of people would like to have an actual reading of the Torah. And so we're just going to start at it. And I've got a lot of work to do. But I will continue with these broadcasts in a series, apart from other videos that I do. So we're just going to talk about the translation and the work that I've done so far on this PDF. So you can download the PDF for yourself if you like. I've had some people that said that they prefer to listen to things like podcasts and so on and so forth, as well as there's people out there that told me they can't read too well because of dyslexia or they're blind. So they like to listen. So I pray that this is beneficial to a lot of people as people are seeking for knowledge and relationship of the Creator and of an understanding. So I'm going to do my best to focus on this with my cell phone camera here on my laptop. First, let's have a bit of prayer here. Father Yah, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the provisions that you've made. And for those that may be watching this now or in the future, I pray that you'll give them a spirit of wisdom and understanding as people seek your face, as they seek your righteousness and your truth. Pray that you forgive us of our transgressions according to your great compassion, O YaHUAH Rahman, Yahweh the compassionate one, our everlasting Father, our Creator. So thank you for this time, and may you be exalted in these videos. Praise be to your name. Amen. Okay, so this is the Turah of YaHUAH, the 5 scrolls of Moshe and Moses, as they are known by numerous epithets such as the instructions, scriptures, statutes, commandments, laws, judgments, or in general, Hadarach, the way of YaHUAH. And this is why I love this basic text from Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 12 to 13. And now, O Yisrael, what does Yahuwah your Mighty One ask from you? For only to fear at Yahuwah your Mighty One, to walk in all his ways, and to love him and to serve him at Yahuwah your Mighty One, in all your heart and in all your being, to guard at the commandments of Yahuwah, at statutes which even I command you this day, for wonderfulness for you. And what we're doing here is we've put in brackets the transliteration for Aibreet or Hebrew, so that those of you who want to understand the original language, that you're able to see this. So in this case, Vayta Yisrael me Yahuwah Elaheka She'al Ma'imka Ki am la yira Yahuwah Elaheka lalakat bekal darakayu walaheba atu walabed at Yahuwah Elaheka bekal lebebka wabekal nepeshka l'shemer mitzvot Yahuwah Chakotayu Asher Anuki Mitzvaka Hayom Latub Lak. So people can study the words in brackets if they're wanting to learn Aibreet or Hebrew. Of course, feel free to share this with your friends and so forth. I've been working on the contents and the page numbers so far, titles. And we're just going to go through an introduction because a lot of people don't really understand translations and all these different Bible versions and so forth. So I wrote up a little introduction that hopefully will help people with their understanding. First of all, the need for Torah, the need for Scripture. What is required of Adam in this life? As we expressed in the first four great words or commands of the tables of stone that were given to Moshe, the first four commandments on Mount Sinai, to love those we see and interact with in our lives here on the land, stated in the last great six words or commands of the tables of stone. So these are known as the 10 great words. In the original it says Debarim. It's translated commonly as commandments. The 10 great words. They are given in the midst of a much larger body of the Torah, that being the way of the Most High, the way of life, to walk in his ways, to love and serve him, to guard his commands and statutes and judgments. Now Moshe and Moses prophesied a time when people in the heathen nations would wake up and turn to Yahuwah and to his Torah. He said that the foreskin of their hearts would be removed, and they would indeed love the Most High with all their heart and their being, according to Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 to 6. There seems to be a growing interest in the world today to return to Yahuwah, to read, learn, and apply the Torah, the scriptures, to their lives. A growing interest as well to learn Aibreet, which is Hebrew, and to dig into the depths of the gifts of scriptures in the 5 scrolls of Moshe and Moses. It is for this reason that I, Shaul ben Yochanan HaYehuda, have attempted to proclaim this truth of Yahuwah and his Torah through this website, WayoftheMostHigh.ca, and this monumental volume entitled The Turah of YaHUAH. This written with the help of the Most High and numerous others. So, about this version of Scripture. It is our belief that people can come to a knowledge of the Most High and His Torah using numerous versions of Scripture and resources available to truth seekers in our modern age. Surely this is how we started. What makes this version different from others is that we're giving the old picture letter Aibreet, or Hebrew, which was used on rocks and other archaeology found in numerous places of the world, primarily in the Saudi Arabian peninsula. We're placing this on the immediate left-hand column of the text, followed by the traditional Tiberian or Masoretic square text version in the middle column, and finally followed by the English translation in a third column on the right-hand side. There will also be footnotes at the bottom, noting manuscript differences between the resources that we have, which being the Septuagint, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Samaritan or Samaritan version. We would love to have had 4 columns, with the 4th column being an English transliteration in order to help English speakers speak the original Aibreet or Hebrew text, but it's just not enough space on one page for that. So we opted to just have the translation in English without the transliteration in Aibreet or Hebrew. The original text in most versions of the Torah, it is uniform. There is an odd manuscript difference. These are mainly transitional or translational language, being the case of English. And so much of the time the word order in the English translation has been changed from the original word order in Aibreet or Hebrew. This is to make it sensible to the English reader. However, we have found that translations do this unnecessarily in a lot of versions, numerous verses of the Torah, which could have in fact remained intact from the original Aibreet or Hebrew in terms of the word order. So this translation is going to be perhaps more than most, restoring the original word order as much as possible in terms of an English translation to produce a literal translation. Now, another issue pertaining to a literal translation is the exact word. So for example, I would attempt to translate yod as hand in most cases. Keep it literal. In numerous versions of the Torah, we find that this is not the case. For example, in a JPS Hebrew to English Tanakh, hand has often been translated as arm in, for example, Shemot or Exodus chapter 8, verse 2. So, it's upon readers to have a concordance and begin to start seeing some of these little changes that might not seem like much at most cases, but sometimes it's significant. So there will be some commentary to highlight insights from the original Aibreet or Hebrew, which are missed by English readers. For example, the letter Ayin, which is the ancient picture letter of the eye, and the Dalet, which is the equivalent of the letter D in English. So Ayin Dalet in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, for example. A person who's reading the English wouldn't see those enlarged letters being highlighted as significant to the text if they're just reading the English translation. All right. Another example would be the naming of Yaakov or Jacob, which literally means to grab by the hand, as the letter Yod. The ankle, which is the word Aikob, so the hand upon the ankle, Yaakov. In Bereshit or Genesis chapter 25, verse 26. There will be a vocabulary list at the back for numerous English terms that have false origins, which I have substituted with words that do not have false origins to my knowledge. This translation differs from most translations in this regard. For example, I have translated Land's End instead of the horizon. Horizon comes from Horus rising, which is part of the false worship of Mitzrayim, or Egypt. So I've put Land's End. Basically, it's at the end of the land that your visible eye can perceive, where the sun is disappearing beyond your line of perspective. Words in ancient Hebrew will be separated by a dot. That is, you'll see it as we go along. Words that are not in the original text, but necessary for English translational clarity, will be in italics. Footnotes are numbered, and verse numbers are highlighted in black and white. There will be some transliteration in the English text, but I do not wish to break up the text too much with breaks, so to save on space. What readers will get in this version, to learn some Aibreet according to the method of restoring ancient Aibreet or Hebrew, is to give a word or two at the end of each verse, or a few in brackets here and there. And if the text demands some strong explanation, there will be a footnote. Okay, so the Dead Sea Scrolls compared to the Septuagint, Samaritan, and Masoretic texts. It is worth considering that the Septuagint, with regards to the Torah, is an alternative script translation, one which often leads the reader to understand what the original Aibreet or Hebrew may have been. So the Septuagint is the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Torah, the Aibreet Torah. One thing about the Septuagint is that in older copies, the actual name of YaHUAH was kept in the actual scroll that it was written on, the paper, parchment. It was written, the name of YaHUAH, in middle pictographic development as seen here, as in this script right here, YaHUAH. So the Septuagint is also basically the same as the Shemaranit or the Samaritan. In 1900 places that differ from the traditional Masoretic text used by Orthodox Judaism. So it's important to note that that the Septuagint often agrees with the Samaritan, and that there are these differences with the Masoretic text. And a lot of people wouldn't know that, and that's why I think it's important that I had put those in to some commentaries or footnotes. Now, the writing style of the Samaritan script is often also closer to ancient Hebrew, as opposed to the square script of the modern Tiberian Masoretic. So it should be said, though, that the Samaritans also had their own agenda, and there are some texts that I will comment on in this version with regards to the Samaritan, in which the opinion is to favor the traditional Masoretic text. So beyond the Septuagint, the Samaritan, and the Masoretic text, we also have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are now readily available online as well for people, the public, to peruse. These scrolls were certainly a great confirmation to not only the tenacity of Masoretic scribes to have preserved the current text of the Torah, mostly used by the world today, but also give much consistency to the Septuagint and Samaritan texts. And so, with these four texts available to us, we see a common consensus for a well-rounded study. And these facts should be orderly put before readers of the Torah to compare traditional Masoretic texts with the Dead Sea Scrolls, Septuagint, and Samaritan. All right, so reading Hebrew or English. Readers of the Torah of YaHUAH have two options. Certainly a great number of people will enjoy this version I'm producing, for reading it in English and also as a study tool for English readers to dig into the original scriptures. There is a vast interest for people to learn Aibreet or Hebrew. This is the reason why we improved both have provided both ancient Hebrew and modern Masoretic script. Truth seekers are encouraged to pursue learning Hebrew through my website section, Aibreet, aka Hebrew, and the materials provided, or contact me. Okay. Now this, I've included this in the printed version here. And this is for, if you go to my section on, let's pull it up here. This section here, Aibreet, aka Hebrew, for people who want to begin a long study of learning Aibreet or Hebrew, you can go through this. And the main document is Al Beit Names and Vowels. Which you'll find there. And it goes through everything that I've put into this document, the Turah of YaHUAH. The reason I put it there is because a lot of people will be reading the scriptures for the first time and they'll start seeing these letters on the left-hand side. Because as we get to the text here, you'll see how it is here with the ancient Hebrew on one side, Masoretic script in the middle, and then the English translation on the right-hand side. Did we need to go through anything else here? No, all this is in the Al Beit document, so I'll read that on. Well, actually, you can go through my two videos that I've done on this document. So the first half of the alphabet, or half of the letters, and then the second half, they're in two videos. And so there's some explanation here on how to read Masoretic Nikud, which is the vowel pointing or the dots that you see in the square script here, if people are interested in learning. And so let's get into the actual scriptures. All right, so hopefully that 20-minute explanation has helped people as an introduction as to how this translation has been put together. And I'll continue to expand this document from Genesis 6 onward in the coming months and year. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me. But let's begin with getting through the Turah of YaHUAH as much as I've published at the moment. And we'll start right from Genesis chapter 1 here. Okay, so we've got Bereshit. Bereshit is these first words here. The letter Beit, or B, first letter there, is your prefix meaning in. And then this second part here, the word Rashit, means the beginning. So I've put, as you notice, as I said, words that are added for clarity will be in italics. And so I guess I could have put in beginning and left it at that, but adding in the word the, of course, you can see would make sense. And so judging from this verse here, in the beginning created the Mighty One at the loftiness and at the land. So here's a very basic transliteration of their, for you to learn, Wa'at ha'aratz, and at the land, for example. So I've tried to include some transliterations to help people learn some Hebrew here and there as they're going. And you'll notice there's a little one there beside the word at. So I've added in a footnote. Most translations do not translate the word al-tau or at. This is literally a direct object pointer. It points at something, and it's a direct transliteration in this version. The word at does never refer to the beginning and end, or al plus tau, as numerous people on the internet are teaching. The word at is a direct object pointer and should be transliterated literally as at, pointing at something or someone. Okay? A literal phrase for beginning and end would be Rashun wa Achrun. That would be first and last. The head, Rash, and the last, which is Achar. Okay? So I hope that helps people understand what the word al-tau means. We've got it right here in the several times in the very first verse of Genesis. So it says that the Mighty One created at the loftiness and at the land. Very simple. And the land existed without form and empty, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of the Mighty One moved over the face of the waters. Al Panei Hamayim. And then said the Mighty One, let there come to be light, and there came to be light. Again, you'll notice these words in italics that now you finally got a version that shows you which words were added in for clarity or not. The rest is all literal according to the Aibreet or Hebrew. Vayamer alachim yehi aur vayehi aur. The Mighty One said, let there come to be light, and there came to be light. And then looked the Mighty One at the light, for it was wonderful. And then he separated the Mighty One between the light and between the darkness. And that word between is used twice. It's called bein. Bein ha'ur wa bein ha'chashik. Verse 5. And then called the Mighty One the light day, and the darkness he called night. And then came to be evening, and then came to be morning, day one completed. Bekor Yom Echad, day one. Put a footnote there, I'll just read that for you. This day uses the word or numeral for one, being Echad, al-Chet Dalet. Each day after this uses numerical derivative, such as second, third, fourth. Had to change the word order in order for this to make sense in English. Literally from day, the second, to the second day, and so on and so forth. Right? So verse 6. And then said the Mighty One, let there come to be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let there come to be a separation between the waters to the waters. So there's your prefix for two with the letter lamed there. So from the waters above to the waters that are below. We'll see that in verse 7 here. Then made the Mighty One at the expanse and separated between the waters which were from under the expanse, and between the waters which were from over the expanse. And it came to be, yes. I translated this as yes here because the word is right there, kan, kap nun. I'll just show it to you here. There's that word, kan. And a lot of translations don't even bother to put that in there. Okay, verse 8. And then called the Mighty One the expanse firm waters. And then came to be evening, and then came to be morning, the second day. Verse 9. And then said the Mighty One, let them be gathered, the waters from under the expanse, into a place, one, and she will be seen, the dry land. And it came to be, yes. Verse 10. And then called the Mighty One the dry land, land, Arats. And the place of the waters he called seas. And then looked the Mighty One, for it was wonderful. That's the phrase there in brackets, Vayira, and then looked, ki, meaning for, it was wonderful, thub. And then said the Mighty One, let her sprout the land, sprout grass from seed, seed and tree of fruit, producing fruit after its kind, whose seed is in it, upon the land. And it came to be, yes. Verse 12. And she brought forth the land, vegetation of seed, sowing seed of its kind, and tree producing fruit, whose seed is in it, of its kind. And then looked the Mighty One, for it was wonderful. And then came to be evening, and then came to be morning, the third day, which is the word shlishi. I'll get to this footnote here before we move on to the next page there. We already covered the translation of the word yes, ken, that is put into this. The word mayim with the letter shin in front of it literally means firm waters. Okay, so we're talking about the heavens, the waters that are above, and that's the shemayim, and then the waters below are simply mayim. So the only difference between the waters below and the waters above is the addition of the letter shin, which implies that it's firm. So these firm waters will hereafter be referenced as the loftiness or the expanse, the expansion that was made up above. The third footnote that we have here is that the Septuagint actually has additional wording after this traditional reading. It says, and the water which was under the heaven was collected into its places, and the dry land appeared. Okay, this is according to the Brenton Septuagint. And the Dead Sea Scrolls uses this phrase here, which is spelled with the letter al, meaning they are collecting. Okay, so the opinion here is let there gather together my opinion is that it makes more sense than using the phrase "they are gathering." And the Dead Sea Scrolls is the one that differs from the other three versions there. So also the Shemayim, the use of Le Shemayim with the Lamed instead of Ha Shemayim, the He prefix. The use of the letter He in the Masoretic text to me just seemed to be more clear instead of using the letter Lamed, which is for or unto. Then you have a variation in the Dead Sea Scrolls as a body of water, such as a person would bathe in or immerse themselves in. I preferred to go with the usage of makum, which is mem, kop, wa, mem, for place. So in my opinion, the Masoretic text made more sense. You'll notice that I did also use the usage of the word she in reference to aratz, due to its feminine form. Okay. In the Samaritan, the letter wa is present for and tree. And so I also added that in into the text. And the Samaritan has the first word as with the letter yod before the letter al in active feminine form. So let's go down to this next verse, verse 14. And then said the Mighty One, let there come to be lights in the expanse of the loftiness, to separate between the day and between the night, and let them come to be for signs and appointed times and days and for years. And the phrase that we have here that I put in brackets is this one here, l'hebedil, which means the separation. Let's go to the footnote before we continue. I used the Shemaranit, the Samaritan, for this particular text for the spelling of lights. Normally the plural form has the uwa and tau for the ending, and this is consistent with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and to a natural pronunciation we've come to. So let's go up to verse 15 and continue on. And let them come to be for lights in the expanse of the loftiness, for the light to be upon the land. And it came to be, yes. Verse 16. And so made the Mighty One at two lights, the greats. At the light the greater, to rule the day, and at the light the lesser, to rule the night, and at the stars. Verse 17. And he gave them, the Mighty One, in the expanse of the loftiness, for the light over the land, and to rule in day and in night, and for the separation between the light and between the darkness. And then looked the Mighty One, for it was wonderful. And then came to be evening, and then came to be morning, the fourth day. And then said the Mighty One, let them swarm. The waters swarm with every living being, and winged birds over the land, over the face of the expanse of the loftiness. Okay, for those who want to study, there's some in-depth commentary there on the differences between the four versions. One difference is the use for light upon the land, and we find that the Samaritan text is consistent with the Septuagint in that case. And then also there's a possible scribal error, which is normally appointed times. It's commonly as Moedim, whereas the Dead Sea Scrolls has YaHUAH. And so I prefer the Samaritan and the Masoretic text over the Dead Sea Scrolls in this example. I just thought it was more grammatically consistent. Then you've got the Septuagint reading with regards to underwater, the reptiles or the serpents or animals. And regarding birds, the Septuagint has a reading of flies with wings according to their kind. I thought that it was definitely more consistent to use the plural for birds, and of course having to change the word order in order to make sense in the English text. But as, again, the literal word order would be being and living. So instead of living beings, it would be being living. So simple changes like that. Verse 21, and he created the mighty one at the whales, the great ones, and at all living beings that move, which swarm the waters after their kind, and at every winged bird after its kind. And then looked the mighty one, for it was wonderful. Verse 22, and he favored them, the mighty one, saying, be fruitful and great, and fill at the waters in the seas, and the bird be great in the land. And then came to be evening, and then came to be morning, the fifth day. And then said the mighty one, let bring forth the land, living beings from it, after its kind, beast and creeping life, on the land of its kind. And it came to be, yes. And then made the mighty one life of the land after its kind, and at the beast after its kind, and at all that crawl on the ground after their kind. And then looked the mighty one, for it was wonderful. And then the mighty one, and then said the mighty one, let us make Adam in our image, and like our form, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and the bird of the loftiness, and the beast, in all the land, and in all the creeping things that crawl upon the land. So you'll notice that very little was added in there. That's in italics. The rest is all very literal. Okay? Again, the Septuagint reads the word for reptile. I favor the word YaHUAH, which is the word for life. This is also consistent with verse 25. And the word behemoth for beast, in English, this is where we get the word behemoth from, for a beast. And so this could be reference to cattle, most translations read. I've also used the Samaritan text with the and prefix that fits the poetic form of the grammar in this text. The Most High said to his messengers, let us make, or naisheh, Adam in our image. The word there in Aibreet Hebrew is tsalam. Tsalam is like an idol that you would make in the image of its maker that they desired it to be. V'kedamatenu uses and in our likeness, or I translated this as form, It indicates like using the letter kop, the letter K as the prefix. So right there. Letter K or kop means and like our form. All right. So demut is the form of something. And so thus it is certain that our Father, as our Creator, made Adam in his own physical likeness, his physical form, and his spiritual character. So the physical form being tsalam, and demut being the literal form. So spiritual and literal. Again, the understanding of that text, let us make Adam in our image and likeness, was known prior to the 1st century, or commonly known as the New Testament era, AD, or a common era, CE. It was always understood that the Creator here was talking about the messengers or angels, which is why they can come amongst us and they're addressed as men, or anush. Let's go on to verse 27. And he created the Mighty One at the Adam in his image. In the image of the Mighty One, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And he favored them, the Mighty One, saying, be fruitful and great, and fill at the land, and rule her, and reign in fish of the sea, and bird of the loftiness, and in all the living things that crawl upon the land. And then said the Mighty One, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is over the face of all the land, and at every tree which is in it. Sorry, I got distracted there. At every tree which in it is its fruit, tree sowing seed, to you it has come to be to eat. And to every living thing in the land, and to every bird of the loftiness, and to all that crawl over the land, which in it is the being of life, every green herb is to eat. And it came to be, yes. And then looked the Mighty One at all which he had made, and behold, it was wonderful, greatly. And then came to be evening, and then came to be morning, the 6th day. So that's chapter 1. And I suppose we'll do chapter 2 as well, since we have time. Again, we're reading from my literal translation that I'm working on, comparing the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Septuagint, the Masoretic to the English. And so we've got the ancient on one side, Masoretic in the center, English translation on the right-hand side. So we've covered the introduction as to how this translation is being made earlier in this broadcast. If you'd like, listen to it again later. So this is from the website, WayoftheMostHigh.ca, and from the Our Scriptures page, and the document is the Turah of YaHUAH, which is a continued work in progress. And so we're going to go on to Genesis chapter 2 here. Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter 2. And they were completed, the loftiness and the land, and all their host. And this is where we get this term Yahuwah Tsabaut. It's from this word, which is your root word, Tsaba, with the letter Mem for the ending, Tsabam, meaning a great numerous host or assembly. So Yahuwah the mighty one of Tsabaoth, the mighty one of hosts. Normally in the plural form this would be Wa and Tau for the plural. Okay, and he finished, that is the mighty one, in the day, that is the sixth, from his work which he had made, and he rested in the day, that is the seventh, from his work which he made. Any helpful footnotes here? Shin, the Samaritan, had the feminine form here with the letter Uah, with reference to the land, meaning to rule over her. The feminine form of Aratz, or the land. I thought that this was a bit more descriptive, a little bit more poetic. Then we have literally Zarai Zarai, which is for seed bearing seed in the Masoretic text. The same word that's repeated twice, perhaps for its great number or its multiplying. This is a slight difference in the Samaritan text, which I preferred for the usage of the hand, or yod, that sows seed. So the tree sows seed from its hand or its branch. The Samaritan and the Septuagint also agreed that Yah finished his ruling or reign, melaktu, during or in or on the sixth day, and then he began to rest on the seventh day. And so I went with that particular way of translating this text. Genesis 2 verse 3 here. And he favored the mighty one at the day, the seventh, and he set it apart, because in it he rested from all his work, which created the mighty one, his works. Verse 4, these are the births of the firm waters and the land in their creations, in the day that they were made. YaHUAH the mighty one, the firm waters and the land. So again, you'd be hard-pressed to find a literal translation of this, keeping the original word order and focusing in on some of these words in most translations. But this is a literal translation, and the only words that were added in by myself are just for English clarity, which are in italics there, which as you can see is very little. Are, the, of, the. Everything else is very little. Okay, so it's literally talking about the births of the firm waters, that's the expanse above, and the land. And verse 5, and every herb of the field before they came to be in the land, and every grass of the field before they sprouted, because he had not caused the rain, YaHUAH the mighty one, upon the land, and Adam it was without, to serve at the ground. So there was no servant, Adam, to serve the ground, and there was no rain. This is our first usage of the name of YaHUAH, or the name of Yah. And in the original script, in the Septuagint, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, as mentioned in the introduction, this was preserved in the middle period of Semitic text. That's how it was written. And so I'll go on to verse 6. And a dew he brought up from the land, and gave drink at all the face of the ground. Again, this is a literal text. It's like the Creator was giving a drink to the ground. Verse 7. And he formed YaHUAH, the mighty one, at the Adam, dust from the ground, and he blew into his nostrils breath of lives. I translated this as lives because it's literally plural in the original text there, chaim. And it came to be Adam, the living being. Now this is singular, chaya, just the main basic word for life. Verse 8, and he planted, YaHUAH the Mighty One, a garden in Eden. Most texts say Eden. The letter here is this one here, Ayin, Eden, from the east. And he placed there at the Adam which he had formed. Okay. What else do we have here? Yeah, the Masoretic text had plural form of births, which I've noted in the footnotes. We've talked about the name of the Creator already, and also firm waters as literal for the Shemaim. The herb and grass is consistent with the Septuagint text, and la'ibad being for to serve at ha'adama, that is at the ground, so literally serve at the ground. We note the relation to Adama being the ground and the name Adam. So Adam is actually related to the Hebrew word Adama, for ground. And so this is why it's important when you're having prayer, especially something of a serious matter, to grounding, getting in tune with the Creator, prostrating on the ground. We do see examples of this throughout the Torah. We'll get to in one of these lectures in the future. Again, the plural form of chaim for lives. And so I went with the Samaritan text, Vayehi Adam, instead of the Masoretic text, which is simply Ha-Adam, and at the Adam. Okay, verse 9. And he sprouted, YaHUAH, the Mighty One, from the ground at every tree desirable to look upon, and wonderful to eat, and the tree of the lives in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of right and wrong, which is, in Aibreet or Hebrew, I put that there, Hada'at Tub, Da'at being the word for knowledge, which is this word here, Da'at Ayin Tau, Da'at. Verse 10, and a river went out from Eden to water at the garden, and from there it divided, and came to be 4 riverheads. The name of the one, Pishun, that surrounds at all the land of Havilah, which there is gold, which is the word in brackets there, Hazaheb. And the gold of the land, that of it, is wonderful greatly. There is the bedala and stone, the shehem. So these are the different jewels and gold that was in that land. Verse 13. And the name of the river, the second, Gihon. It is the surrounding at all land of Cush. And the name of the river, the third, Chadakol. This walks east of Ashur, and the river, the fourth, is Perat. So I've tried to keep the literal transliteration of the names in the text. So people will be learning quite a bit of Aibreet or Hebrew in terms of transliteration for probably the first time in an English translation. Verse 15. And he took YaHUAH the Mighty One at the Adam, and he placed him in the garden Eden to serve it and to guard it. And then commanded YaHUAH the Mighty One unto the Adam, saying, from every tree of the garden to eat you may eat. We'll pause there before verse 17. Again, that usage of the word tree of lives being in the plural form, perhaps alluding to the plurality of life. Second footnote is drinks, being that the garden was given to drink. And then we have why I've put the transliteration YaHUAH, indicating the surrounding eastern regions. And then Bada'ala and Shahem. These are the literal names in terms of transliteration for Bdellium and Shohem. And then we've got Gihun, which I've put a footnote there, which a lot of people don't know. That's with reference to Ethiopia, which the Septuagint identifies as well. Septuagint also has Tigris in place of the Euphrates, which in the original text is Ayin Rash Tau. And then we've got Asher, or Assyria, in the Septuagint. So important notes as far as geography goes. Verse 17. And from the tree of knowledge of right and wrong you do not eat from it, for in the day you eat from it, death you will die. We'll get to the footnote after. It literally says mut tamut. Death you will die. Verse 18. And then said YaHUAH the Mighty One, it is not wonderful to exist as the Adam, none at his side. I will make for him a strength in front of him. Again, we'll get to that in our footnotes as to why it should be worded that way. Verse 19. And he formed YaHUAH the Mighty One still from the ground at all life of the field, and at every bird of the loftiness, and he brought them unto the Adam, to see what he would call them. And all which he called the Adam, each living being, that was its name. We could have inserted became, but just put was for clarity. Verse 20, and he called the Adam names of every beast, and to the bird of the loftiness, and to all living things in the field. And to Adam there was not found a strength in front of him. Again, we translate this word strength as azar. It's the literal word for strength, ayin, zayin, rash. And he caused to fall, YaHUAH the Mighty One, a deep sleep upon the Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and he closed the flesh under it. And he built, YaHUAH the Mighty One, at the rib which he took from the Adam, a wife, and he brought her to the Adam. And then said the Adam, this strike, because he was stricken, this strike, literally, is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. This one will be called female, because from male was taken this. So, we have this repetition in verse 16 of the usage of the word akal. We have the repetition of mut tamut in verse 17, and so this is the poetry that we find in this second chapter. These poetic terms that we only notice in the Aibreet or Hebrew, because it's a repetition of words that are very similar, much that you find in English poetry. The second footnote we have is a strong lady in front of him, literally face to face. This is similar to the word nagab, which means south. The word here is nagad, which means in front of or before. So then we have ayin wa dalat, which is ayud, and the word at. These are both present in the Samaritan text. And these words do make for a clearer sentence and also for the poetic form. The other footnote we have here is there's a plural form in the Masoretic text. The Samaritan text. So choosing the Masoretic text in this case I thought was a little clearer. And the word pa'am being that word for to strike, literally to be struck or to hit. And then found that the Samaritan text had a greater contrast between the husband and the wife. And I just thought for clarity that in the English text that this usage of female being taken from male would be a little bit more readily understood in the poetic sense for the English reader, as opposed to how it's commonly translated. Verse 24, therefore a male will leave his father and at his mother, and join to his wife, and they will come to be, from the two of them, to flesh, one. Again, we're just trying to keep the word order here. That is, unto flesh, the bashar, ached, unto flesh that is one. And they came to be, the two of them, naked, the Adam and his wife, and they were not abashed. They were not ashamed. The word there is nakedness. See this one here. I've put in the brackets there for you. Okay, so we've had our first broadcast. Trying to read the Torah from a very literal word order and with some transliteration, a few Aibreet or Hebrew words for clarity, some footnotes on the differences between the different manuscripts, and let me know what you think. This is not a final piece, it's work in progress. So far we've done Genesis 1 and 2. On the next video that I do, I'll just continue where I left off. I'm not sure how far we'll get, maybe chapters 3 and 4, or maybe we'll get through to chapter 5. But we'll just continue on this way. Again, people thought that I should do a reading of the Torah, and so we're going to make our way through it. I hope this has been helpful. Again, feel free to leave your comments. Thank you for those that have been watching today. Joseph Willis, and thank you. Yeah. So I'll end this broadcast for today. We will continue to do these live videos, roughly 1 hour to hour and a half or so segments. That way it's not too long for people. And that way it gives people more of an opportunity to leave comments in the future as to what they thought could use some work or tweaking here and there for your consideration. Again, feel free to follow me on Facebook, and my YouTube site is WayoftheMostHigh, simply. And for fellowship, we can meet on Twitter, known as X, or Facebook Messenger, whichever people prefer. I will be signing up for Instagram, Snapchat, Telegram, all those types of things. So if you're on any of those platforms, I'm hoping to get a wider reach than previously. Previously, I was just on Facebook. I just publish a YouTube every couple months or whatever. It was kind of sporadic, but we're going full steam now. All right, so this is one of a series of videos about the Torah. We're just going to read through it, deal with some translation stuff. We're going to try not to get into too much doctrine. I mean, there's a lot that I could have said about these two chapters. For example, the scriptural day being from morning to evening. If you're interested in that, go to my calendar page and click on my article, the scriptural day, which just show you real quickly here. Okay, so we'll go to calendar stuff. And then what I have here is the current moon cycle. There's a calendar for those interested in the lunar cycles. And there's my article on the scriptural day. So Genesis 1 goes into quite a bit of detail as we talked about the evening and the morning and so on and so forth. And so you can read through this article. Again, feel free if you have questions or comments about this. Doing a lot of work on writing and making videos. So keep in touch. Let me know what you think of the productions that are going forward, because I'm going to continue to work on providing Torah readings and teachings. And we're going to try to keep them separate. Again, Torah readings are going to focus more on reading the text with a few doctrinal or manuscript footnotes for descriptive understanding of the text, and some things that people wouldn't normally see in the English text, like we talked about earlier, the enlarged ayin or the enlarged dalet that were maintained in the ancient scripts. So I wish peace upon those who are watching. Again, feel free to share with your friends and loved ones. And praise be to Yah. I'll be going over to X Spaces at the moment to check on some friends and stuff, and maybe have some fellowship. Hope you've enjoyed this, you guys. Shalom. I always forget how to end this.